Hey guys, it's Paul once again, and this time I'm going to be reviewing a very rare and obscure SOV film from 1986 called Night Ripper. This was made or released by International Video Presentations. Most people who are interested in SOV movies probably haven't heard of this movie, or if they have, they haven't seen it because it is a tremendously difficult video to find. I bought this on eBay for $30, buy it now, and I snatched it up the moment it was put up, so I was really lucky to get it. I think there's a copy on Amazon for like 150 bucks or something. I don't remember how much that was going for, but it was well into the hundreds. It's very difficult to get this movie, and most people have heard of other classic 80s SOV films like Boarding House, Blood Cults, Cannibal Campout, 555. But a lot of people haven't heard of this. I think it's because it's just a really difficult VHS to find. I don't think there were many of these put out into the public, and I think the reason why is because the artwork is so boring. This movie didn't do a very good job of marketing itself. Usually these sort of SOV movies have very graphic artwork or some kind of artwork that really presents itself as this really gory slasher type film. Or it would have a title with something like Massacre in it or Blood. But here we have a very tame title called Night Ripper and very tame artwork, which is really abstract and really doesn't mean anything. And that's why most people haven't seen this movie, but it's definitely worth picking up because it's actually a pretty good film. I put it in the ranks of movies like Blood Cult or 555. It's not perfect by any means, but it's certainly a fun, entertaining movie with some great kills. They're all stabbing kills or throats getting cut, but they're certainly entertaining to watch nonetheless. And watching the characters interact with each other, these bad actors, is certainly fun too, but we'll go into that in a little bit later. The video I have here is slightly faded. It's hard to tell. It's very slightly faded, but if you look at the back, you'll see how deep that red is, but on the cover it's slightly faded. I don't mind too much though, because it's still a great deal and it's not faded that much at all. If you look on the back, you got this graphic image of a lady, or in the film she's a model, with a knife through her face, which is kind of cool. Even though her mouth is open and you don't see the other end of the blade in her mouth, but it's fun nonetheless. And then you got that other death scene on the bottom, girl who was stabbed up in the movie. Pretty fun, Giallo-esque kind of deaths, which, like I said, I'll get into in a second. The movie was directed by Jeff Hathcock, and if you remember, I had done a review on Victims. It was directed by the same guy who did this one. He did this one after Victims. And just an interesting little note, the opening credit for this movie, where it says Night Ripper, has an exclamation point at the end. And I note that because on Victims, he did the same thing, had an exclamation point on the title of the movie. Although the exclamation point didn't make it to the cover of the case, but is certainly on the movie itself. I thought that was just a little funny thing that I noticed. The movie begins with a model going into her apartment. This really weird, creepy guy goes up to her. He's pretty much a photographer. In this movie, there are two photographers who work in this photography store. This happens to be one of the guys from that shop. And he's giving her, the model, these the prints of the photographs that he had taken of her. But this guy's really creepy. He's talking about the serial killer that's going around, stalking women, cutting them up, and all these things. And immediately you know that this is our red herring. And it's okay to have a red herring in a movie, but not when it's so overt. When it's so heavy-handed, it's like too obvious to be the actual killer. This guy is talking in a very creepy voice, like he is the serial killer, but that's the whole point. It's just the guy who's acting it is really overacting the role of a red herring, and the model gets into her apartment, takes photographs, says goodbye to the photographer, goes into the house, or the apartment, gets a knock at the door, and you got this leather gloved killer, which is awesome. I love killers who wear leather gloves, and he pretty much stabs her up. It's a pretty cool death scene. And because this killer knocks on the door immediately after the girl goes back to the apartment, it just once again forces that idea in your head that this guy, this photographer guy, is the killer in the movie. They're trying really hard to push that into your head to kind of give you false clues, but it's so obvious that you know it can't be the killer. You know he can't be. Next, we're in the photography studio, which is pretty much just like a store, and we're introduced to the other guy, the other photographer, whose name is David. The other guy who we've met already, the red herring, his name is Mitch, a really creepy guy with the mustache. They're working together in the studio, and I think this really beautiful foreign woman comes in saying she wants pictures taken of her. Our photographer, Dave, the good guy, he's pretty much our lead throughout the movie. He's pretty much in shock because he just finds this girl absolutely gorgeous, even though he has a fiancée at home. Then we're introduced to a couple in the car. Now, by this point in the movie, you realize every time you're introduced to a new model, you know it's going to be a death scene. This character really has no role in the movie except to just die, so we're brought into the scene where we got this couple in the car. Guy's trying to get some action. Guy doesn't get any. Girl refuses him. He pretty much drops her off at home, pretty pissed off and all. When she's walking into her apartment is when killer comes out to like cut her up and kill her. We're getting stabbings. She's getting stabbed in the face. The unique thing about this death scene is that every time we get a shot of her body or the knife in her body, it's like a still frame. It seems kind of unusual, but it looks actually pretty cool. And next, we're back at the photography store, I believe, and we're introduced to a woman who works at the photography place as like a delivery girl. She always talks about the models, how beautiful they are and how gorgeous they are, and you kind of feel, I guess she's a lesbian. She also kind of like wears like flannel shirts, I believe, kind of like lesbians, so at least the butchy kind of lesbians. Immediately you know, okay, we got a lesbian here. How is she going to play into this whole plot of the movie, or is she just some kind of gimmick they threw in the movie? Because later in the 80s, it seems like a lot of slash films started to experiment with throwing lesbians or gays or have the whole homosexual theme in movies, kind of like City and Panic and Hide and Go Shriek. And this seems to fall into that category, so we're waiting to really see how this lesbian's going to play into the plot. Next, David, our photographer, the good guy, he's driving home and he's being followed by somebody, and we think this has to be the killer, right? And this whole following scene is taking a very long time. It gets boring, and I guess all this is supposed to either be suspense or just filler for the movie to make the movie longer, but it goes on for a long while until we finally realize that the person in the other car following David, our photographer, is his fiance's boss's wife, because his fiance's been cheating. But at the same time, I don't think he really cares, because he was really into this model Jill that came in, so it kind of gives him an excuse to kind of like ditch the fiance and pursue this new model girl that he met. This time we're back at the photography studio, and Mitch, the creepy guy, our red herring, is talking about how his wife had left him in the past for some modeling career, or I don't remember what it was. But once again, the writers of this film, or the directors, really trying to build the red herring of this character, because I guess we're supposed to think he has a motive to kill these models now. Now we realize, oh, he hates models because his wife left him to be a model. So now we're introduced to another random couple in an apartment. You know the girl's a model, and you know she's gonna die. There's this funny scene of them getting into an argument, and she's yelling at the guy, and the guy smacks her across the face, and it's freaking hilarious, because it's supposed to be a serious scene, but it doesn't feel serious at all. So I just can't help but laugh when you see him friggin' slap the girl across the face, because it's ridiculous. And he pretty much shuts her up with the slap, and everything goes back to normal. But he ends up leaving anyway, and that's when the killer comes in and stabs up another victim. Another stabbing, lots of blood, looks cool. Then we're in a scene where the lesbian, the delivery girl early in the film, she's in bed with another girl, so now we're like, oh, now we're definitely sure that she's a lesbian, right? She realizes that our delivery girl, she's upset about something. Her girlfriend asks her what's wrong. She says, well, I can't get this girl out of my mind from a past relationship, and I'm trying to figure out what does this have to do with the movie. Later it does have something to do with the movie, but I don't think it's written well into the script. Then we have another scene where the director or writer are trying to really force us once again to believe Mitch is the serial killer, when there's a scene where they're talking in the photography studio, and he tells, I forgot who it is, David or whoever it was, that before being a photographer, he was a butcher.
Jill's a legal secretary.
Really?
Yes.
Well, anything can happen. I was a butcher for 5 years, and now I'm a photographer. You have great cheekbones. May I? You've got a marvelous face. I'd like to do some things with it. That is, if Dave wouldn't mind.
And the significance of this is because when the police were interrogating David and Mitch, asking them why all their models were being killed and trying to figure out if they had any connection to it, the police told them that the killer had some kind of knowledge of the human body, and they did it with certain precision. So now that when Mitch tells us that he was a butcher in the past, I guess we're supposed to think Mitch is the killer. But he's too obvious to be the killer, so it just doesn't work at all by any means. Then we have a few other deaths in the movie. One is just a random Asian guy. I forget how he plays into the plot, but he hardly does it all. And we also have a death scene of another model, I believe. And everything eventually boils down to the grand ending of the movie, this big twist, which I think the twist works really well in a way. The ending takes place at a mannequin factory, which is a really cool kind of place. I mean, because it's creepy. Mannequins all over. It takes place in a mannequin factory where Mitch is going to do a photo shoot with, I think, Jill. But not just Jill is going to be there. Who ends up being there? The lesbian's there. Forget her name. She's there to kill Jill and to kill Mitch. It's then realized that the lesbian chick wants to kill all models because her ex-girlfriend was a model and treated her badly. So because her ex-relationship went totally sour, she wants to kill all models because models think they're so beautiful and that they can do whatever they want. She ends up killing Mitch, stabbing Mitch. However, I don't know how she was able to overpower him, but she ends up killing him. Now Jill's being chased around this mannequin factory, and the lesbian is being all super crazy, talking all this crazy stuff about hating models, and we have this really weird twist of how the lesbian chick dies. She goes to stab Jill, right? And Jill somehow dodges it, but when she brings her hand down to stab Jill, the hand of a mannequin catches the knife. And the lesbian falls onto the floor because of the scuffle, and the mannequin falls on top of the lesbian, killing her with the knife. At this time, David comes in with the police, and they pretty much witness seeing the dead body on the floor, and that's just the end of the movie. You got this really ridiculous scenario at the end of how the lesbian eventually dies, which is so far-fetched. The movie ends on a screenshot of her dead on the floor, and it says the end, and that's it. We don't get falling action, we don't get like a kind of conclusion to everything that happened in the movie. It just pretty much ends with her dead on the floor. And that's the end of the movie. This is actually a pretty fun SOV movie from 1986, and I wish more people have heard of it. It's just really super rare. I guess that's why they haven't heard of it. Well, if you did hear of it, you probably haven't seen it yet, because it is pretty tough to get. I encourage anyone to watch this. It's a fun SOV movie. If you love other films like 555, or Cannibal Campout, or Blood Cult, it feels like kind of like a Blood Cult or 555, you're gonna like this movie. Granted, it's not edited perfectly, but it's fun nonetheless. The picture quality is pretty good. The sound work is really good compared to other SOV films. Although there's a lot of background sounds being picked up by the mic, it sounds good nonetheless. All the voices and all the speaking is very crisp in this movie. I encourage anyone to get this. It's a really fun SOV film. So if you can get Night Ripper, go for it. I think you'll get a kick out of it if you can find it. You'll certainly be entertained if you like this kind of thing. I'd probably put this on my list of top maybe 5 favorite SOV films of the 80s. It's a gem, certainly a gem. Most people haven't heard of it, so check it out. Look forward to other reviews. I got a stack over here that I plan on reviewing. A lot of movies I started to review and never finished, which I want to do. I'm not going to really tell you what they are. I thought it'd be more fun for it to be a surprise. So this has been Paul. So good night, guys.
When are you going to tell your wife?
Pretty soon.
Pretty soon. That's all you ever say.
Look, I said I'd tell her.
You say that every time we're together. And you sneak back to her like a little puppy with your tail tucked between your legs.
That's enough. You know I can't make her mad. She'll take me for everything I've got, including my balls. I've got to break it off gently.
When? Next month or next year?
I don't know. Maybe.
Well, I'm goddamn tired of playing the other woman. Jerry, you told me you love me.
I do, baby.
Then show it.
What the hell do you call what we've been doing the past 2 months?
This isn't love. This is two sweaty bodies fucking under a flood lamp. And I'm tired of flood lamps.
Is that an ultimatum?
Yes. Either you tell her you want a divorce, or I will.
Listen, you stay the hell away from my wife. Do you understand?
What's the matter? Afraid of losing your balls? Well, I don't think you got any.
Just remember, baby doll, I can ruin your career with a few phone calls. So I'll see you tomorrow. Same time, same place. Right? I said right.
I'll be here.